Hey Soul Tribe, it's Kate and Kerry.
We are so excited to have you hear this new episode. Please review and subscribe at the end. It's free and it helps us keep spreading our message to you, our awesome listener. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode. Hi guys, welcome to Soulsessed. I'm Kerry, your host.
What's up, guys? I'm Kate.
And we are so excited to start this episode. It is all about shame, a big one, a big, is it an emotion?
It is. It's funny you said that. I had to look it up. Like, what do you call this devil of a thing? It is a toxic emotion.
Yeah. And I think that we all experience it. We all have had, experiences in our lives that have left us with shame and shameful feelings. And that's what we're going to go over today, and examples of it and how to heal it, how to release it, and what we've done to help that, right?
Yeah. There's such a great book, Healing the Child Within by Charles Whitfield, that I had gotten a long time ago, and it actually has a part in shame. It's quick, but what you just reminded me of is the doctor, it says, we all have shame. Shame is universal to being human.
Yeah.
And it's so true. But the thing about shame is you don't think anyone else has it. That's the problem with it. And then it becomes this huge secret. The part about shame that is so hurtful and painful is that you hide from it. You even hide from it with yourself. And because it's so painful, you don't want to feel it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that shame is like probably the worst emotion to experience. It's because it doesn't involve anybody else. It's just about you.
Right.
And I forgot, I was going to say something that I forgot.
No, that's so interesting that you say that, because in order to feel shame at first, like in the beginning, when we're growing up and we're younger, you had to be shamed. You're not born shamed. Like you're not born into it. Yeah, we have it, but someone had to have shamed you in order to feel shame. So the onset is coming from someone, but then, like you said, Kerry, then once you internalize it, for me, it was like a weed. And I couldn't, like anything then that came to me, if it was any type of, could have been taken as a criticism or, I never saw it as constructive criticism. It just immediately then it became my internal dialogue. That is like how I spoke to myself, was shameful. You idiot, you got it wrong. What's wrong with you? All of those things. And that's why shame is so toxic, and you're left alone with it because you're so ashamed about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say it's the most painful emotion along with jealousy. Probably those two are the most very painful because they're so personalized. They're so about yourself. And exactly, once really being identified with something that you feel bad about, it just snowballs when you don't know how to handle it or look at it. And it's really hard to look at something when you feel bad about yourself with what it pertains. And also really being a woman, right? And in our society, there's so much shame that we are conditioned to feel bad about our bodies with, right? And, so many other things that go along with that we're going to get into. But just to clarify too, like a couple things, the differences from shame and some other emotions. And I know you wanted to touch on that a little bit with guilt.
Yeah, because I think it's so important to differentiate these intense emotions that we do have. And what are the differences, even the differences between jealousy and envy. So in terms of shame versus guilt, guilt is when you do something and you regret it. You don't feel good about the action. And shame is when you do something and you don't feel good about you as a person. It's no longer about you didn't like the thing you did. You don't like you. It's not separated. That's the big difference. It's not, shame is the action. I'm sorry, guilt is the action and shame is how you feel about you.
Exactly. And my differentiation with guilt and shame, I was thinking about guilt is like a nervous, I'm going to get caught. And shame is, I caught myself and I am mortified and left with self-loathing and so much just self-regret. So it really is just that internalized all about yourself and feeling terrible and judgmental. And guilt is more about other people finding out about you, instead of shame is you found out about you and what you did and you feel terrible about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think just guilt is about the action. It's just like, oh, I didn't like how I did that. Oh, I don't think I'm going to do that again. Whereas when you do something that you didn't like, you don't like you. It's
Yeah.
never a thing. It's always just, it's you as a whole.
Right. It's not about anyone else. It's about yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just leaves you feeling horrible. And it's really hard to face. I mean, which is why it goes a lot of the time unchecked, because it's so hard to look at ourselves. It's so hard. And, just in particular for me, like with shame, I definitely had a lot about body, just body image. I think being an American woman in our society and how we're conditioned and trained, like you said, is pointed out by others, and we're trained with some ideal of how to look, how to be. And if we're not living up to those expectations, you just feel shame about it, right? And
Mhm.
also, it's good to point out too, like, I don't care what size you are. Like, I think that it's really interesting to point out too, like, even thin women or in shape women have shame about their body. It's like we've all been trained and conditioned in this like American way, and standard to live up to, that no matter what size you are, you end up hating yourself some way, shape, or form. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. And I think now just coming into more of an acceptance in society now of different sizes, shapes, and sizes of women and what the American woman looks like, on so many different levels, which has definitely even helped me at 47 years old. There's just so much more of an acceptance. I mean, when we were growing up, it was Kate Moss. It was these emaciated waif. Remember that term? The waif-like look, like you were, that was what was great, is basically be as tiny as you can. And, look what that says too, just about be physically as tiny as you can, because we were already as so much as women shut up verbally with our voices, like be quiet, don't say much. And now it's like, don't look much either.
Yeah, and also the fashion industry is largely gay males that were running it. And someone had pointed that out to me, that it was like wanting to have women look like 14-year-old boys.
Yeah.
Just very thin, you know, as skinny and, non-breasty as possible. And it's like,
No,
what?
and no buts.
Yeah. And exactly. It's like, how far can you disappear while still being there
Exactly.
and just to be looked at.
Yeah.
It's just like we're all very objectified. And I feel like, being a twin, we were really objectified very young on looks, right? And, I remember being 4 and just like stand together. And all of it was about our appearance, like we had talked about in our other episode. But it very much so became about body. And I think pointing out our physical appearance, I had shame about parts that people pointed out about you that were better, and shame about parts that people pointed out about me that seemed to be, better or whatever.
With my body, shame probably really happened with Graves' disease.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, it was 11th grade, and being diagnosed with Graves' disease. And Graves' disease is thyroid condition. So I would be able to eat 1,000,000 calories, and I just constantly ate all day, just nothing. I was never full, and just burning calories. That's the Graves' disease. There's also hypothyroidism, where it's the opposite, or hyperthyroidism, where you eat and you gain a lot of weight. So I had the opposite. And so at that time, maybe it was 10th, because we were in the time of puberty, of really starting to hit puberty, or maybe I should have been hitting puberty, and when all my friends were, and I didn't. And I'm trying to think if you did. I can't remember. I just know that I wasn't developing, and the shame in it, it's so crazy. It's like, only because if it's not corrected and talked about, these crises that go on in your life, these hard times that go on in your life about you will internalize it as bad if it's not explained to you. It comes in that way, and it's not explained that we're going to take care of you, this is normal. Like literally now, it was Graves' disease, but now in my later years it's turned to hypothyroidism. Like 99% of the world has this. So, but if it wasn't explained to me that way, I just was defective,
Yeah. And that was like so terrifying too. But it really is like just the lack of communication and just the importance of it is just really what today, if we can stress anything, is even shame regarding yourself, obviously, to check in with that and talk to somebody about it, because it is hard to face if you can't do it on your own. A therapist is a wonderful resource. And also communicating with your kids.
Yeah, I think that's where, with my Graves' disease and hitting that like pinnacle moment of in a negative way, that's where I started to then come into an eating disorder, really started to like drink and numb out those feelings, because they were so big. It was such a big event in my life. And I do feel bad, because I remember mom and dad, when I did come home and it was like official, it was diagnosed, and we were at the kitchen table, and mom and dad were like, do you want to talk about it? And I was so filled with all these feelings that really, which is, yes, I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know how to. And I didn't really have practice with that, of like, like communication and like talking about feelings and emotions and grow. And we didn't like grow up like that. It was an Irish Catholic household. You weren't like, how are you feeling today? And so I wanted to, but I couldn't. And I just said no. And I left. And like, that was my one opening, and it never came again. And I think because they were trying to help me,
Oh,
trying
cool.
to not bring light to a sensitive topic. But when you are, conflicted with really heavy stuff, if you don't talk about it, that's the biggest thing with shame, is talking about it, because it is like a weed. It will just take over your life.
Yeah. And I remember too, like when you were going into the eating disorder and just became anorexic, really, was you were very thin, um, and getting so much attention for it. And that's when I was like, okay, well, I can do this too. Because we were just all so starving. We were starving for attention and communication. And that's when I just went into body shaming. And that was the only thing. I hated my body. It really is, because it's something that you can the most easily thing to control.
Yeah.
It was the only way that I could like process this huge thing that I didn't know what was going to happen to you. It was like, I didn't know what it really meant. It wasn't talked about either. And then just left with these huge emotions and these huge scenarios and situations on our own.
Yeah. And just leading then into like an eating disorder and drinking and smoking and all of these behaviors, and my lifestyle was all, it's not something to be proud of. It's not like, you're going around talking about this stuff. It just became like a life of shame. And so all of these things were just so secretive. I mean, bulimia was top secret, even though a lot of my friends, that's where it comes from. Like one picks it up off the other, and that's exactly how it started. But once it gets a hold of you, it's all bets are off. Like there's no deciding one day to just not do it anymore. It's an addiction. It's a disease. And talk about the secrets, all of that just started to really that was my life, was just there was no open communication. The shame was so great. And you really know when you're suffering with shame you can't look people in the eye. You're slumped down. You can't look up. You're nervous, you're uncomfortable, you're withdrawn, all of that. You want to like crawl out of your skin when you're really with people and meeting people, unless you're numbing yourself some way, somehow.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I really see that like with the cult, I felt like I had so much shame. It's funny because in the beginning, it's like hook, line, sinker. Everyone's telling me I'm in a cult from New York and our family. And I'm like, yeah, no. And they're telling me everyone's going to say that. And I'm just in full denial. But that got in there, and it always remained until, 3 years in, I was like, I think they're right. And things would just start to, not make sense. And I wouldn't agree with what was going on there subtly and, really sort of with myself. And I just felt so much shame about being there, that is really what kept me mostly estranged and apart, which is what shame does. It
Mhm.
keeps you isolated,
Mhm.
separate.
Mhm.
Any secrets or things that we feel bad about comes out in disconnection and staying away because you're embarrassed.
Mhm.
I really did know on some level what was going on, but I couldn't fully admit it. And I fully didn't know. But internally, now looking back, I see, oh, this has really kept me isolated and apart. And now in my life today, I have it really badly, and I still have things to overcome about
Mhm.
it because it keeps me separate. When you can't be honest and talk about your full life because you are ashamed of it and you're embarrassed, it keeps you apart.
I mean, that's why we couldn't have a relationship, is because it's like you knew I don't know if you knew, because it was such a like touch and like boom goes the dynamite. There was no communicating about it with each other. And if I expressed any type of concern, like with, whatever you were doing out there in terms of like working or whatever, it was immediate, like, oh, you're judging me, oh, of course, I knew you were going to say that. And so it was like this dead end all the time. And there was no open communication about it, because that's interesting. I'm sure there was deep shame about it, but it came out in defensiveness. It came out in then criticizing me, judging me, all of that. And it was such a hole to be stuck in, where how do you have a relationship like that? It just was such torture. It was like they totally took you and then took you for like years. It's not like it was like a weekend or a 2-week thing. It was like you were gone.
Yeah, it was.
And
And it's, just to bring that up too, it's interesting when you have shame, it does come out as anger and defensiveness. So
yeah.
when you're not dealing with really anything, any emotion that, is overcoming you, you lash out, you have anger about it. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, it completely affects your relationships, because honesty is the key to freedom and all of it. And if you're not being honest, especially with yourself, what can be had?
Right. Yeah. It's just an utter denial, even a denial. Like, this is like a perfect example of this, of denial. You're in a cult and you're denying that to yourself, because the amount and level of shame in it, you can't even address it. You can't even fully feel it. So then we take on other emotion to mask it from others and ourselves. It's really wicked, wicked emotion.
Yeah.
And just for myself, you know, the shame I lived of also
Oh,
stealing, smoking, drinking, bulimia, manipulating, just, anything I could do to get my way. Yes, it's a life of shame. And when I decided to get sober and had to look at this stuff, like you just said the key word, it's about honesty, and it's about honesty with yourself. But the only way to rid shame is getting it out. You have to get out. There's a saying that is, you are as sick as your secrets. And once you let that out, like I remember when I started to do the 12-step work, and part of it is writing all this shit that you did, all the stuff that you're going to go to your grave with. You wouldn't dare tell anyone. And a lot of it, like for me, stealing, or just, even bulimia, let's just say all of these things that are just so shame-based, and I just didn't want to talk about it, or I didn't want to ever let anybody know about it. When I started to say, do you want to keep living that way? Or do you want a better life? Do you want freedom from yourself? Do you want freedom from this pain? And you got to decide that. And once you do, the remedy for it, what I was told was, you got to write it out and you got to talk it out, and you got to tell someone this. It could be a priest. It could just has to be someone you utterly trust, and just tell it out. The freedom is insane. I'll never forget, like, my first real awareness of shame shedding me.
mm, yeah, it's really amazing it's like the hardest thing to do ever. It really is, to face yourself. It's not as hard to be honest with somebody else as it is to be honest with you.
Yeah.
really look inward and be honest about it. What?
No, I just remember I couldn't put one word, the first word of writing about like what my shame or my pain or your fears or it was so hard to just write. Like just that first word, you're so afraid of yourself. You're so afraid of yourself and what's going to happen if it's revealed. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what happens. Relief.
Yeah.
You know what happened where when I did first tell basically my story to a trusted person, my spiritual advisor, and I went home and I was deflated. I was relieved, like that's it. I didn't like
Blow up.
explode. Yeah. The next day, walking to work in Manhattan, 12th Street, and all of a sudden I realized I was looking people face to face. I was looking at their eyes. I wasn't seeing their feet anymore. I was seeing their face. And I was like, I didn't realize I walked with my head down. I didn't realize I couldn't look at you until I could look at you. Like it's remarkable.
Yeah, it really is true. And just the lightness. Like I just remember feeling like so much lighter and people saying that. Like, God, what happened? You look so much lighter. And I was just like, but I knew it. I felt it. I didn't know I looked lighter, but I felt lighter. And it was undeniable. You just can't deny it. And yeah, it's funny because once I started to look at things, I remember writing things down and then not even being able to write something down. Like it was like I was hiding it from my own psyche, even though it was right there. And then getting used to like admitting it and even changing it a little bit because I was so scared of the full truth. Like we were literally going to go to hell, blow up, or just be known to yourself as this horrible person. But the opposite happens. It's almost like admitting it, compassion for yourself comes in.
Absolutely.
And you have that compassionate, yeah, like, wow, healing moment toward yourself about admitting it. And relief, total relief. And it almost becomes like, it becomes like a total, I was going to say it almost becomes addictive to keep getting like relief from it, but it's still like hard to unwind and unravel all of this stuff. But it does, once you start feeling that relief, become like a habit you don't want to stop.
Well, once and two, the relief and the compassion and the self-understanding allows you then to have compassion and understanding of other people. That's really where I feel like now talking about this, that's the ignition to learning how to forgive people is you're forgiving yourself along this way because you're coming clean. You're saying, I'm going to be all right. Let's come clean. I forgive you. That's what you're getting out of it. The after effect is like forgiveness for yourself.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, it's boogeymen. Anything that you are wanting to go to your grave with, if it has a name, it's been done before. That is the worst with shame. It wants you thinking nobody else has ever done this shit. And it's such a lie. Can you imagine? Just think about the one thing that you're holding on to that you will never tell anyone until the day you die. Just imagine if I did it. And just imagine you're laughing about it now, how many years later? Like Kerry and I laugh our balls off about the shit we did. I mean, it's like comical and it owned me. It fucking owned me.
Yeah, I wanted to say that too. Like once bringing it to somebody else and the importance of that and why we say it. It's not just to write it out to yourself, but to tell another, because you'll be shocked at 99.999% of the time, you're like revealing the hugest secret you've ever had in your life. And the person's like, uh-huh. Oh yeah, me too. And then you're like, what? You too? Like, I'm not the only one? Because that is shame. It makes you feel like you are the only one who's done this. You're horrendous. Don't ever tell anyone about it. And then once you do, with that bravery, first of all, takes tremendous balls, bravery, and courage to admit to yourself and then bring to another. And then you find out, I'm not the only one. It's rare. And even if there's something that you were the only one about, or they didn't have an experience with, there's everything else. It's that they know that they've done. There's no judgment to be had on anything, because it's like, yeah, we do all sorts of stuff that we feel bad about. And then it's just, that's it. You forgive yourself about it and no one cares.
It's kind of crazy that you said that, because I remember being pissed. Like, this thing fucking owned my life for so long. And I finally get the courage to muster up just saying it out loud. And I was looked down, I said it, and there was silence. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I said, and she's like, okay, like bored, like, all right.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
that's it. That is what has been like causing me wanting to not be here anymore. That's the reaction. Like, next. Yeah. It's like, we're not that important. Like, the stuff that we do, even if it is big time, even if it is big time, you're not the first and only one. And guess what? Now, what happened to you can help, your experience can help the next person. That's what this is about.
Exactly. With them saying the same thing to you a day later or a week later, when you got totally off the hook about it. And now you're able to say, like, yeah, me too. No big deal, right? And some things are a big deal, but the relatedness helps heal it. Starting the healing and the forgiveness for yourself and the compassion.
Exactly. The compassion of it all.
And also, too, I wanted to say was, this is why we judge the shit out of each other, is by not facing ourselves and admitting what we got. We feel so bad about who we are thinking we are, that we're just judging everyone else because we're judging ourselves. So once you start to look inward and have compassion and get off this judgmental, I'm this terrible person, you can stop judging everybody and look at things more in a compassionate, friendly, imagine that, a friendlier, more understanding, kinder way, because you have it for yourself.
Yeah. And, or the more painful side of it is looking at everybody else and thinking they have it, like they've never even touched shame, or have never had a bad day in their life just because they look good, like, I'll even just say for myself, I didn't come into recovery looking like this. I'm saying I'm clean. I've showered. I have proper clothes on. I don't look like I haven't slept in 14 days. Like, I look clean. That is like the ultimate thing for me. And I feel clean.
And haven't smoked like a pack of cigarettes this morning.
Totally. And like, my lifestyle is like pretty clean too, like all of it. Like, thank God I don't steal anymore, and I'm keeping my food down. Like, I don't have all of that, weighs you down too. That doesn't.
You mean not throwing up? You're keeping your food down.
Yeah. And just because people look good doesn't mean they don't go through stuff. So I used to look at people that look like they had it all together and have that pain. Like, I guess it's just me. I guess I'm the only one that feels like shit, and I better keep it all to myself. But let's look good. Let's
Yeah,
go to the bus stop and, put our smile on and just say, like, everything's so great. How are you?
we're a party, and also that's the terrible thing with social media.
Mhm.
And that's why Kate and I want to be as honest as we're being, because everyone is dying with these secrets and this facade and this, we're, oh no, everything's great and everything's fine. Image that's just not helping anybody. And most particularly ourselves, and especially our daughters. I don't have a daughter, but we're all connected, right?
Mhm.
Women, women, women. And we're all just suffering with all this bullshit. I mean, even the mention of mental health is still like, oh, I'm fine. It's like everybody has, it's physical, mental, emotional. Nobody got away from not having all three. We're all human. That's it. And then we're just all working on the spiritual plane to heal all the other three that come into place once you start to heal it and get connected spiritually, however you do that, either that's with the religion or not. I don't practice a religious practice, but I have a spiritual practice that connects me to something greater than myself, that
Mhm.
connects me to you by looking at me, healing me, helping you.
Totally.
So social media, man, goddamn, we have got to get off this image.
Yeah, and I think social media can also help. It's just, you get into these spirals of the comparison. And yeah, of course, and I'm guilty of it too. I post happy events. I don't post, eh, maybe, and I want to, maybe in the future we should, even us going through this whole journey of building Soulsessed Twins and learning, and every day it becomes a little bit of something newer, or we're going here a little bit, we're here, and sometimes we don't know, and the ups and downs of that alone, and wanting to show that, that was like this past weekend, feeling like that. It's just like, and also too, just having so much change for Kerry and I now that we are so together. It's like we just want to be even more, so just like trying to figure all this out. It's like you have to make sure, and why you really don't see me sometimes on social media is because then I become numero uno, and if I need to shut down, that's the first thing that goes. I become to myself with who's around me, which is my family, those that love me, and I need to go inward. And that is like the beauty of all of this too. You're not so uh
Floundering.
disgusted to be with yourself. You want to be. That's where I find comfort. That's where I find real truth.
Absolutely. And that's exactly right. I was going to say, what's really amazing is when you feel something's off or, discontented or really lost and all of this, you're not floundering anymore. With having a spiritual practice, you're not just like grasping at straws and don't know where to look and don't know where to go and just stay feeling so lost. You know where to go. This
Mhm.
past week, I've, known I need to be with myself. I need to figure out and think and be, with my spiritual self and being and get connected and let things just sort of unravel and unfold so I can get some clarity. And being able to say that, do you know how much I hated myself? Maybe
Mhm.
I like how much I fucking hated myself. Like
Yeah.
I've been at war with myself my whole life. And for me to now be the one I go to for comfort and clarity and figuring shit out, it's like the greatest events of your life, right? It's like, I mean, just really even really appreciating that right now. Like, I've wanted to spend time with myself this past week. That's who I wanted to be with. Alone is crazy.
It is crazy. And what it's reminding me of is when I had like big moments like this of just like be feeling lost, or just like not just not knowing yet, like where the net, where what's going to unfold, I'd be like, let me go get a glass of wine and let me work on this. Let me figure this out. And all I was really doing was wanting to drown myself. I wasn't wanting to know. I know the real self. We all have a big S inside of us, all of it. I just never got to know her because I was constantly shutting her down with substance, whatever it was, even if it was shopping. That reach, that feeling of like reaching outside. And when I feel low, I go inward now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's the benefit, like, of doing this stuff. Like, we're so scared to come clean with ourselves. We're so scared to look at this stuff. But the stuff that you hate in your life, that's the stuff that gets to go when you do this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a good signal. Like shame, it's such a good like calling of like, this needs to be looked at. Please look at this. It will free you, rather than, I mean, it's so, of course, twisted because it makes you feel like it's the last thing you want to look at and the last thing to even, glance towards. But it really is the signal now of, this needs healing. Look at me. And that's exactly what happens when you do. Because, I mean, my God, I just realized that, like, how much at war with myself
Oh,
I've been my whole life. Like, and it is in particular, yeah, like just like hated my stomach my whole life. Or like, I remember being honestly on the diving team when we were like 10 and wanting to, we were like so little and so thin and all this. And I'm like, I wanted to cut my thighs off.
yeah.
And it's just like, that's society though. I mean, that's American training of, you
Yeah.
just couldn't be, you know, as thin, thin. You couldn't
Yeah.
be, the thinner the better.
Right.
Or the disappearing the better.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you gonna say?
I just think now coming into our 40s, like so many women that I know, I think we're coming to like this tipping point, this point of all of these defenses that we do carry, all of the ways that we live to hold and hide all of this stuff that really is hurting us. I think a lot of people are wanting to get help. I think a lot of people are wanting to not hurt anymore and find their purpose, find like what's there more. I like that. That's what happened with me. Like I wanted, even now, in my 40s, like I loved my life. I love everything. I'm so grateful for where I've been to where I've come. But there was this my more. And that's how Kerry and I, like, were born. I mean, I don't mean like how we're, but how Soulsessed Twins was born, and I think a lot of us are looking and seeking and searching for this. And we want to be that courage for you. We want to show you, like, forget what everybody else thinks. You got to put you first, whatever that is. Like, this is where it's at, this community, building this community together with you to show up as our real selves. That's what this is all for. And to do it along the way is getting rid of all this stuff that's holding us down.
Yeah, because I mean, when? When's when? It's now. This is it. Like, I'll never forget when I turned 47, for some reason, I just realized, like, this is it. Like, we live once. What the fuck are you doing? What do you want to do? And that's when it was like, and why are you not?
I know.
So much fear of what people think, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like when you realize that, like, this is it. This is our only rodeo here as the being as you are right now. What are you going to make of it? And let's do that. And that's when it changes. Because guess what? Nobody else is coming. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody can do it for you. You have to do it yourself. You're it. You're the one you're waiting for. So let's go. Right? It's like, what do you have to lose? We're going to fucking die. So, hello.
No, it's
Right?
crazy because we both had the same exact, pinnacle point, whole experience, of like, we are going, like, this is it. And we both had it. You're in California, I'm in New York, separately, not knowing we were both having this, like, what's the real calling? I loved all that I was doing and all that I continue to do. And like you always said, what you said to me after unraveling all of this is, yeah, we can have many passions. There's one purpose. And for us, for me, that's this, is my spiritual development, wanting to give everything that I've learned to the next person. Like, I live for that. I've lived for it. I just wanted a bigger scale. I wanted to try and reach bigger, more people, because I know there's so many people out there that are really hurting.
Yeah, it's so funny because I mean, every job I've had has always been helping people, like teaching, real estate,
Waitressing.
waitressing, but in like some way, it was always like service. And then after real estate, I was like, oh my God. Well, with real estate, I thought, oh my God, this is it. I love it. And I did. But then everything just keeps bringing you closer and closer and closer and closer to the full bag. And that was, service on a huge level, change people's lives. If I can help do that by sharing mine and how I've changed mine. And another thing too, though, I just wanted to say, which I was reminded of about shame and embarrassment and with the cult, what kept me apart from you and others was knowing what was going on and what I was doing that had me embarrassed and shameful, right? Like the job, a lot of the time, not everybody, but a job that the majority of us were totally encouraged to have and did hold was shoe shining. And it was so embarrassing. At one point, your life was like, yeah, this is good, but it was to keep us down. And we were only told that this is what we could really do because we were so incapable of really holding a job and being in the world. And a lot of me knew that that wasn't right. And it was just like living in shame and embarrassment, which is how, everybody, he kept us down and controlled. And so that would eat away at me. And I couldn't be honest with you or anyone else about what I was really doing because it was so embarrassing to me. And being on food stamps because we weren't capable of holding a true life and being successful and getting out and having money was like looked down upon completely, which was a way of controlling us and keeping us down and shamed. So it's so much that I was holding on to that I just couldn't unravel without being able to fully be honest about it and let it go. So shame is fucked up, man, and it will have you in places way too long when you don't face it. And
Yeah. What?
apart from people that are so important to you for too long. So this work is crucial to unlock and put you where you really ought to be, which is free and in your purpose, whatever that is.
Yep. All right, guys. I hope this was a good one for you guys. It certainly was for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please check us out on Instagram, Soulsessed Twins, and we do daily inspo, daily post, all of that. Connect with us, follow us. We love you guys.
Love you. We'll see you. We'll probably do a part 2 or 3. See you later.
Bye, guys.
Stay tuned, guys. We are thrilled to be here. thrilled to be here with each other and feel so privileged to try and carry a message of hope and positive change to one other person out there. So please subscribe and review and share our podcast to reach that person. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulsessed Twins and get daily inspo and connect with us.
Let's build this community together.
100%. So come back next week and we'll see you then.
Get soul-sessed with us, Soul Tribe.
That's it. Bye, guys.